Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Podcast. What's happening, all my woods people? Today, we are coming to you from Amarillo, Texas, or at least I am, but my co-host, Casey Smith, is in the mouse house, and I hear some crunching going on. I hope that is you and not one of those big mice.
It's just a fresh homemade pickle. No big deal.
That's good.
That I'm eating, not the mouse.
Yeah, I've seen I saw on the story you were doing a lot of the canning lately, huh?
Man, I'm just into canning things these days.
It's cool.
Big bugs.
My wife taught
pickles.
you everything you know, right?
She did, man. She did. I even had to contact her in Colorado to figure something out the other day.
That's right. And you didn't even believe her expertise at first.
I didn't. I did not. Well, I felt like we didn't do that the night before. She told me to cook them for 20 minutes, and I was like, what are you? But she's right. But
yeah,
I ended up branching out on my own a little bit.
Yeah.
Made some tomatillo sauce with that.
Dude.
Okay, so tomatillo sauce is one of those things that the sum is greater than all the parts. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like the tomatillos by themselves aren't that great. Jalapenos and onions, yeah, that's good stuff. But you mix it all up together. Oh my goodness. We're about to make some enchiladas verdes up in here, and it's going to be good.
I'm ready, dude. Speaking of that, I just had me some really good Mexican food here in Amarillo.
Really?
Dude, light me on fire hot sauce. I'm talking about.
That's the good stuff.
Dude, I was talking about, my wife looks over and she goes, hey, you're sweating really bad. I'm like, sorry, this is really good. I ate a bunch of it, man. But I'm feeling good because that was the first Mexican food I've had since somewhere in June. I'm not exactly sure where. And I was going to get some sweet tea, but I decided not to since I already had a little bit of caffeine today. So now that I'm back in Texas, tomorrow is the day for sweet tea. I'm ready for it.
Tomorrow is sweet tea day.
Yeah.
All right.
And the reason, if you've been tuning in, that I have not been in Texas is we took an epic trip. Myself and my family, the last basically 10 days. We left June 30th, and today is the 9th, 10th. Yeah. So been gone a while, and if you go back and listen to the last podcast, which was episode 74, there's the first basically half of my trip is kind of outlined there. But after that point, the next day we were going to Yellowstone. We went to Yellowstone. And, man, it was incredible. I mean, I know that you're going to want to go one day, and so I'm not going to ruin parts of it for you. But, man, I've got some awesome pictures, great experiences. But I'll tell you this, man. I've been to Rocky Mountain National Park several times, and Yellowstone is kind of low elevation compared to Rocky. Kind of warm. And I think there's also, there's obviously there's some great geo formations of different kinds there that are incredible. You can't see them anywhere else in the world. But as far as just mountain scenery and tons of elk, I love Rocky, man. That's awesome. And
Cool.
so, but we had a great time there in Yellowstone. Lots of traffic, lots of people trying to get in and see everything. And it was kind of weird how like resorty it was, I guess you'd say. Like there's a ton of people there that were really, really worried about how they looked.
Yeah.
And that was just weird to me. They weren't really.
I feel like it's kind of like the, you hear a ton about the Grand Canyon, and it's going to be a place you can pull up to the edge of it and take a picture, and there's going to be a ton of people there taking photos. Or you can go to the Black Canyon, the Gunnison, like we did, and see something that is, like, I don't know how it gets a lot cooler than that, and be some of the only people around.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, there's like, there might be second place or whatever in the canyon world, but man, the experience was just unreal.
Yeah.
And I bet Rocky's the same way.
Yeah. I'm the same way, but and don't get me wrong. Like, you need to go to Yellowstone and you need to see Old Faithful and you need to see, some of the geopools and that kind of thing, and the massive herds of bison and whatever else you can find there or whatever. But I feel like for me, I only need to do it once. Like if I go back to Yellowstone, I want to be in one of those remote corners where on a trail where nobody else is at. I mean, that's just kind of what I want it to be. So
sure.
Anyway, but I haven't filled you in completely, but I ended up catching one Yellowstone cutthroat there.
Nice.
We went to the Snake River, which was down near. Okay, so I got a little bit of a story here. We ended up going. So when we went into Yellowstone, we went around this big loop. There's a big loop in the park, basically, and we tried to see the whole thing. So the first day we weren't able to see the whole thing, and we ended up in Montana. And we saw probably about half the park or a little more. And we ended up in Red Lodge, Montana. First thing I'll tell you here is that right before dark, we got to the northeastern edge of the park, and there's two little towns there. Neither one of them have service, right? And we have a podcast with a very important guest the next morning. Okay, so I have no phone service, and I have a podcast with a guest. So I have to go somewhere. We have... And the next closest town is Red Lodge, Montana. And it's 69 miles, basically 70 miles from where we're at. And I'll go ahead and let you know the scariest drive that I have ever been on in my life. We went over Beartooth Pass, and you can do your research on it, probably see some pictures. I'm talking hairpin 20-mile-an-hour turns in the dark. We passed, I think, like 2 or 3 vehicles for the whole 70 miles. And we ended up, the pass is at like literally 11,000 feet. And you can't see. It just looks like literally you've got a cliff that's straight up and down on your left and a cliff that's straight down on your right, and it's just, man, it was scary. But we ended up in Red Lodge. And the next morning did the podcast there. It was great. We'll be releasing that probably in, I don't know, September, October, somewhere in there. So it's timely. And then we went back and saw the rest of the park. And we were going to come through the Grand Teton National Park, which is on the south end of it. So we basically from Red Lodge until we got to Jackson Hole, which is south of the Grand Teton, we had no cell service at all. So we couldn't look up hotels, we couldn't look up campgrounds, and we're in Jackson Hole basically on, I think, what was a Friday or a Saturday, and there ain't a hotel that's not $400. There ain't a campground that's open. They're all full. I mean, literally. So me, my wife, my 6-year-old, and my 2-year-old sleep in the truck.
Oh,
miserable.
Oh,
miserable, dude. And
dude, there wasn't like a national forest you could just go throw up camp on somewhere?
Dude, there probably was somewhere, but like, there's some weird rules up there, man.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is due to the grizzlies and stuff. I mean, there was like several campgrounds they wouldn't let you put tents in because of grizzlies.
Ooh,
like you had to be in an RV. And so it was weird, man. But we literally couldn't find anything, and we were in Jackson Hole at like 11:30. I'm like, dude, I have got to go to sleep. I'm exhausted. And we just decided to crash out there, and I was glad that we did, because the next morning we got up and went to the Orvis Fly Shop, and the guy hooked me up, man, and he told us I didn't want to go. I was intimidated to fish the Snake River because it is very large, and ended up having the best day, man. There's a lot of braided channels, so it was really flat, and there was perfect places for my kids to play all day. My wife could sit there, not have to watch them too heavily because it was real shallow for 300 yards through there. Mm-hmm. And I got to sit there and smoke Snake River cutthroats, man. I'm talking for a while it was every cast, and they were mostly small, but I saw a 2-footer come up and surface one time. I mean, there were some big ones in there. And anyway, ended up catching Snake River, which is something I never caught, and they were awesome. We'll be posting pictures. And then from there, we spent some time, I guess we spent like around 2 days there in that area, or day and a half, and we ended up going to Colorado. And long story short, man, I caught a Colorado cutthroat, just one.
Nice.
And I was just stoked. He's really pretty on a little creek.
Where did you go into Colorado at?
Well, we went into Colorado. I can't remember exactly where.
Or something like that?
Yes, yeah, Craig, yeah.
Okay.
And so came down, and we were going to actually, what I wanted to do, we stayed in Eagle after we couldn't stay in Yampa, however you say that.
Yeah.
Because
these are all fly fishing names, all fly fishing towns.
Yeah, we were going to stay there and try to catch cutthroats in the area. And we pull in, and it's weird, dude. We pull into Yampa, and it is like shut down town. But there's this one like Wyndham owned lodge hotel or something. Can't remember what it's called. And there's a diner attached, like Penny's Diner or something. There's it's literally Sunday night. There's 5 cars, and they've got 40-something rooms in there. And it says, at the door, it says, check in to hotel at diner. The diner is a 24/7 diner, and I'm telling you, there ain't no way anybody eats there after 10 p.m. most nights, So anyway, we go in there, and the ladies, they don't want to serve us food, and they tell us, yeah, we're full tonight. I'm sorry. And I'm like, there ain't no way y'all are full. But anyway, so we have to drive down to Eagle, which is pretty good, little 40 minutes down to Eagle. And next morning I took a chance on some cutthroats that had recently been discovered, green lineage cutthroats, according to this article, and didn't pan out for me. Long story, I won't tell it. And then ended up going down to the Vail area and fished Cross Creek, I believe it is, in the Holy Cross National Forest or wilderness area.
Wilderness, yeah.
So we did about almost a mile on the trail, the whole fam down, and it was beautiful, man. I got some good footage and caught a bunch of brooks and one cutthroat. And so on this trip, I caught 5 native cutthroats that I have never caught before.
Dang, dude, you're have crested the list. You only have a few more to mark off.
I know, that's what I feel like. But I do want to go back and a lot of these specimens were literally 6 inches, So I do want to go back and try to make it a little, either in some cases catch one that's bigger and more colorful, or in some cases actually catch one that's smaller or whatever and more actual, thousands of years of lineage kind of thing, in the upper sections. So
a true wild fish or whatever.
Right. So that, there's always a challenge, for me. So I'm excited about it. But man, we're back in Amarillo. We stayed in Colorado Springs last night, and back in Amarillo, going to play a show tomorrow night, and I'll be back. And unfortunately, you're not going to be anywhere around.
I know it, dude. We're gonna honk my horn when I'm 80 miles from Fort Worth while you're playing your show.
All right.
Because tomorrow night, after we teach class on Wednesday night church, me and Cassie are leaving, headed to Colorado, and my wife right now currently is stressing out beyond belief because we're not packed, and I'm doing this interview, but that doesn't matter.
You've been working too hard.
That's how I live my life, man. I pack at 2 or 3 a.m. with no list and forget things, but when you pack it all, it's hard to forget stuff.
That's the way it goes. Cool, man. Well, today we have an interview with a guy that has been on the podcast before, and really smart young guy like you, KC, and he's got a lot of information that we're gonna try to pry from him today. Alex Comstock of Whitetail DNA, and really what we wanted to hit on was just like the implications of targeting a specific buck or a couple of bucks, and I think you're gonna really enjoy this episode. So, what do you think? Should we get into it with him?
Yeah, let's holler at Alex.
All right, let's get him on the phone. All right, so on the phone we have Alex Comstock of Whitetail DNA. What's happening, man?
Hey, not too much. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, man. I'm on the heels of good weather. KC, maybe not so much.
Hey, I am on the nose end of good weather, if that's what you want to say. If you're on the heels of it, I leave for Colorado in a day, so I'm looking forward to what you just had.
Dang it. Well,
that Texas weather's probably a little warm down there, huh, Casey?
Yeah, it's been kicking my rear. I've been building a house for about 5 months now, and we're in the dog days, and I spent most of my day on a ladder about 20 foot up with a paintbrush and a paint roller in my hand. So it's been kind of rough, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I don't envy you right now.
I don't blame you in the least, man. But that's okay. Like I've said before, I do not envy you come about December 31st. That is just absolutely the worst.
Sometimes it might be October 31st.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, this off season, man, it seems like to me, and I don't know, we haven't known each other that well, but it seems like for that long, but you have been very busy and just seems like you have a super high determination and focus. Am I crazy, or do you feel that way as well?
No, I mean, you'd probably say that. Yeah. I mean, I spend a lot of time doing stuff, pretty much all year. And, yeah, I mean, I feel like I wake up and go to bed and it's like all just in the blink of an eye,
Yes, I do know. Well, cool. So has any of that paid off in the form of a new target buck by chance?
Not yet, because I've only got one camera up here in Minnesota right now that I just checked yesterday, and I really didn't have anything on it. And then this past weekend, I was out in North Dakota just getting everything set up. So I was getting cameras up for the first time all summer.
Cool.
I'll be going back there in about a month. But, I've got a slew of bucks out there that will be on my radar that I'm hoping they'll be back.
Yeah.
A few that have been around out there for 2, 3, 4 years even.
Man, that's cool. That's cool. So how many have you had in your life since you started hunting? I mean, has it always been this way, or is this just kind of a new development in the last few years?
It's kind of interesting the way it started, because I kind of did it backwards, because my first buck with a bow, actually my second buck with a bow, was one that I targeted, and it was, I'd gotten one trail camera picture of him, and it was on like November 1st. And I would have been like 17 or 18, and didn't get another picture of this buck all year. And it was the first kind of big buck that I'd gotten pictures of in my life. And I ended up shooting him, and he ended up scoring like I think he was 160. But the point of it is I hunted 25 sits in a row in the same tree stand, which is like goes against all rules of deer hunting. Never got another picture of him, and then on like December 27th, he came by and I shot him.
Wow.
It was just really weird the way that started, and then that kind of just triggered the way I hunted. And I kind of go back and forth between targeting specific bucks and not, because I'm sure we'll dive into it, but there's a lot of pros and cons to it, and it kind of depends what you value and what you want to get out of a season.
Sure, yeah. So the most recent buck, Kobe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm not
Kobe.
Is this hurting already?
Nah,
okay.
Not yet. Anyway.
Okay, good. So is this Kobe like Black Mamba, or is this Kobe like Kobe beef?
No, this is like Black Mamba.
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's what I thought. I was thinking. So, all right, give us the story, the whole story, all in detail.
The full Kobe story from start to finish.
That's it, man. I don't care how long it takes.
All right. Well, I'll give myself a little plug here before I start.
Okay.
if you're a North American Whitetail reader, the full story from start to finish will also be in the August issue of North American Whitetail.
All
So,
right.
No way, dude. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Killer.
when I get to the end of the story, I ended up actually meeting. Well, I'll just come back to it.
Sure.
All right. Anyway, so the full story of Kobe would have been. Actually, I'll start with how I named him, because 3 seasons ago, I think. So last year would have been 17, 16, so 15, I believe, or 16. I don't know. It all gets jumbled up. But anyway, the year before I started hunting Kobe for real, I had a giant on camera. You know, it was a booner. He was on public land, and I actually had named this buck Shaq. And then there was another buck running with him in the summer that was a really solid deer, probably in the mid 150s. And I then decided to name this buck Kobe. And that year, though, I kind of set my sights on Shaq. And Shaq ended up being just kind of a ghost of a buck once he shedded his velvet. And then he ended up getting shot by this guy. And so I found out he had been shot. And then I had set my sights on this buck Kobe. So yeah, this would have been in 2016. And in late September, I had an encounter with him in the pouring rain, which is, you know, it was one of my first encounters with, while I started filming. It was kind of like my first good encounter on film. And he had come out into this field about 100 yards in the pouring rain, and then just fed across this bean field, never came in. And then later that fall, it would have been in November. Actually, I think it was November 12th of 2016. I had just gotten into this stand, and it was probably 20 minutes before legal shooting time. And this doe comes running right under me, and my bow's still on the ground. My camera's still in my backpack. Like, I had literally just climbed up to the stand. It was kind of late that morning. And then all of a sudden I hear some grunting, and I look up and can, you know, at that point it was kind of in the, where it was light enough where you could kind of see, but not really, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I could see it was a buck coming at me, and this buck comes running at me and gets about 5 feet from me. And at this point, I'd put up my binos just because I wanted to see what buck it was. And it was clearly Kobe, and he was standing, you know, right. I mean, I could have jumped off the stand and grabbed him.
Should have.
He lets up. Yeah, no kidding. Looking back on it, I should
You
have
just held him down until legal shooting lot, you know? That'd work fine.
I don't know what I was thinking, just staring at him through my binos.
That's right.
Dumb move on my part. But anyway, so then he lets out like the loudest grunt I've ever heard. I swear, just mocking me. And then he takes off after this doe. And then right after he leaves, another big buck comes through. And I'm like, all right, well, clearly I'm in the hot spot. I'm not moving my butt all day. You know, I was hunting. I had a couple buddies that weren't too far. I texted them, you know, I had no lunch with me or anything. I was like, I'm going to sit all day. You guys do whatever. I'll see you, meet back at the truck tonight. And didn't see another deer the rest of the day, of course.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Gosh, that would have been rough, man. I have to have food. I'm an all-day sitter. I love it, but I've been shooting a squirrel or something. Like, I can't sit up there all day without anything to eat. That shows some true grit right there on your part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like, it was one of those days that just felt like it was going to happen, especially having that encounter in the morning. Yeah. And so I was like on pins and needles, and all of a sudden it was like, shoot, the sun's going down,
Mm-hmm.
But then that was actually the last encounter I had with Kobe that year in 2016. And then I'd gotten him on camera intermittently throughout the whole fall. And at that point, I wasn't completely obsessed with him yet, because I'm pretty lucky in the spot I hunt in North Dakota where I have a lot of mature bucks. And so he wasn't the only deer that I was targeting. Mm-hmm. But at the time, it was like, wow, I just saw, Kobe, but whatever. And then go through the rest of the year. And then a couple more of my target bucks got shot during rifle season, muzzleloader. And Kobe, towards the end of the year, was kind of the last one standing type of thing. And during late season, I couldn't get him on trail camera pretty much to save my life. And then that winter, the winter of 2016, 2017, I spent the whole winter, like, I was dead set on finding his sheds, right? And I was like, I was going into that winter. I'd never really been a great shed hunter and never found many. And I think trying to find his sheds is what kind of made me a better shed hunter, because that winter I had my best shed season where I found 19 sheds.
Wow.
But I didn't find any of his. So, so again, he schooled me, which kind of, as you'll see here, it's kind of the name of the game with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so then going into 2017, which would have been last year, going into the summer, I had kind of decided this was the deer I wanted to shoot, because I figured he was going to be probably one of the biggest bucks I had ever hunted at that point, because if he had put on anything, he was going to go from, probably 160 to who knows what at that point. I didn't know. And I thought him to be a 5 or 6 year old. And for me, it's more than just about the score. I mean, I like to reference the score, because
sure,
when I say a big buck, you might say a big buck and it's different, but just so someone has a picture in their head pretty much.
Yeah.
So going into the summer of 2017, I kind of knew, or let me backtrack here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Spring then comes after shed season, and I had picked out a couple trees and gotten them all cleared out to hang stands, because I was like, all right, I had a couple spots where I thought I might be able to get them. And then going into summer, I was really, really careful with how I did trail cameras. I waited till about mid-July to hang trail cameras, and waited for the perfect day. It was pouring rain. I went and got cameras up. And the whole reason with the way I do my trail camera strategy in North Dakota is different than in Minnesota, because season opens so early. So I actually could be hunting a deer on a summer pattern opposed to just getting inventory.
Right.
And so I get cameras up, and then I go back and check them in August. And I remember I was talking to my good friend on the phone. I was checking these pictures, and I was like, I hope Kobe's on it. I hope he's on it. I was like, I have no idea. And I start going through the pictures, and the very first buck I had on trail camera was Kobe, and he was giant. I mean, if people could hear that phone call, I mean, we were just freaking out. I was like, holy shit, he's on camera. Like, you got to see him. I was like, as quickly as I could, saving the pictures to email it to him. I mean, he's like, how big? I was like, I don't know. He's 180 at least. I mean, he is just everything that I was hoping for and more.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of it, it's not like I had one picture of him. I had day after day, daylight after daylight picture. And throughout the rest of the summer, leading into season, I got, thousands of pictures of him. I mean, he was stupid, and he was just living right where I was hunting him. I mean, I had daylight photos in front of tree stands, and then where I was getting most of my daylight photos was down in this spot in the timber. And then the way the spot is, there's like a big crop field behind it, which is private. I have permission on the private. And so I was running a camera up on this private field too, which is a bean field. And I was getting daylight pictures of him in the timber coming from bed. And I would get just a ton of nighttime pictures of him up in this bean field. So I pretty much was like, all right, I got him pinned down. I know where he's bedding. I know where he's feeding. I know where he's headed to at night. Wait till the right conditions and make it happen, right?
Right.
And went into season, and I think it was the second or third day of season we got the right. I needed a northeast wind. I got it. Went into my stand and was like, let's go. It was the most. I don't know if it was anxious, if I was nervous, like what it was, excitement. But going into that hunt or the second or third day of season last year, I was just like shaking, like pulling up my bow. Like it was, I like truly believed in my head that I was going to have an opportunity at him and I needed to be ready. Never showed. Weeks go by, he doesn't show. I check my cameras. He's still on them all the time. And it's like, the day I'm there, not there, he's in daylight, I mean, It was to the point where it's kind of ridiculous. And then we get into October, and we're getting time to the back half of October, and I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to shoot him now, it's going to be late October, kind of that early pre-rut phase,
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a new job, and I moved. And in hindsight, I joke with buddies about this, I should have written in a Kobe clause to my contract Because if I wouldn't have moved, I swear to you, I'm pretty sure he'd be on my wall.
Man.
So you really think that the weekender schedule really had a huge effect on your ability to target this deer?
Yeah, because I mean, I couldn't stay up to date on information. I mean, cell cams would have been cool. But for instance, the week after I moved, which was like, I think it was like October 15th or something like that. And October 25th, I had him on daylight on 2 different cameras, and he had hit this one scrape in the morning and in the evening, 20 yards in front of my tree stand in daylight.
Oh my goodness.
Gosh.
And I'm sure you guys know what picture I'm talking about. It's the one with his head back up in the scrape. That's one of the series of like 200 pictures from him standing right there. So, I mean, it's pretty. And then I had him in daylight all through the last week of October, but I didn't check this camera until I'd come back to hunt again in early November. And so then that brings us to, I think it was November 10th or 11th. It would have been opening day of North Dakota's rifle season this past year. And I had gone out there, and North Dakota season, it always opens bow and gun on a Friday afternoon. And so I'd gone back to North Dakota, I'd taken a couple days off work, and was hunting Friday morning of opening day. And so I was like, all right, I got the morning. And then, because at this point, my number one fear was he's going to get shot by a rifle hunter, And opening morning comes, opening day of what would be rifle season, but the morning, you could only bow hunt. I'm sitting in my stand, didn't see him. And then in the afternoon, it just turned to absolute crap. I mean, it was practically a blizzard. I remember walking to the tree stand that afternoon. I was like, man, if I don't shoot him this afternoon, no one else is, because no one's going to be out hunting, and it's just awful weather. I mean, it was like 30, 40 mile an hour winds. So I get to the tree stand, and I had a great hunt. I saw probably 7 or 8 bucks, passed on a couple nice ones.
When you say nice ones, like what caliber deer are you passing to have opportunity to Kobe?
Like 130, 140 inch deer.
Yeah, really nice deer.
Yeah, which in hindsight, going into this year, that's not going to be the case. But and so I heard one gunshot that afternoon, and I knew it was, on a neighboring property somewhere. And, I heard that one gunshot, and I was like, oh, it's only one. So, I mean, like in opening day of rifle season in Minnesota, you hear like hundreds of gunshots. I mean, so then I'm walking back out to my truck after the hunt, and I literally was just getting into my truck, and my phone buzzes. Like, I got a text, and I looked at it. It was my one friend that lives out in North Dakota, who he's super connected, knows freaking everybody. And it's a picture of a hunter behind Kobe. And it just says he's dead. Man. And it was a very, I don't even know how to really put it in words. It was an odd moment for me, because like devastated, yet I really don't know how to put it. Like I was sad, because the way I talked about friends and everyone, it's not that I thought I was going to get Kobe. It was like, not if, it's kind of when was I going to get Kobe, because I thought I had him pinned down,
right.
Not like it was some deer that you just kind of hope to get. You're like, yeah, I know this buck, hopefully he comes by, or he's kind of a ghost. Like this buck, I felt like I knew his every move, and obviously I didn't. And when I found out he was shot, I was just like, I need to go see him, And I ended up getting in touch with the hunter that shot him. And this is where the story gets even better. And so this guy that shot him, he was an older guy, probably in his 50s or 60s. And in North Dakota, you have to draw for rifle tags. So you can bow hunt over the counter, whether you're resident or non-resident. But for rifle, even for residents, it's tough. So this guy's a North Dakota resident. He's a local farmer. It was his first rifle tag in 7 years.
Oh, man.
And then on top of it, his son was the one who had shot Shaq the year before.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
So they had shot my top target buck for me 2 years in a row on a property that ended up being about not even a mile away from where I was hunting. I I got to go meet them, got to hold Kobe's rack, take a couple of pictures. They showed me where they hunted, right where they shot. They shot both the deer out of the same blind.
Wow.
Wow.
So it was at least cool for me to meet them, see the deer, and then go to even have them show me where they shot these deer, because it even kind of connected some dots for me the way deer are traveling throughout the area.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess that's pretty much the story of Kobe.
Man.
I mean, it was a deer that, looking back on it, I mean, I kid you not, I probably have 2,000 to 3,000 pictures of them still on my computer and hard drives, and then another probably 500 to 1,000 like blurry ones that I deleted over the course of 2 years. I mean,
Golly.
it's ridiculous. And then the fact that I'm pretty sure, looking back on it, there were some key mistakes that I made, which we can get into in a little bit. But I think that when I pulled up and walked into the timber, he was probably like, "Oh, Alex is here." You know, that's kind of how I think it. So
That's funny. So, man, first of all, I got to give you some mad props for, and you know, I just got to see this through social media and a few texts here and there with you, but it seemed like you handled that situation like a pro, like going and showing that dude respect, and like just acknowledging the fact that he did take a world-class animal, and you know, so just want you to know you did a real good job, I think, of how hunters should act in a situation like that, because if any of us are going to have target bucks throughout our life, we're probably going to run into that scenario some way, somehow. You know, I had a deer that I was much less personal with that was a target buck for me in 2013, but it was a mid 150s buck for our area on public land. That's a toad. It just doesn't happen. And another guy ended up killing that deer, and it was a similar scenario. I never got to go see the deer or anything, but I did see a picture, you know, and I had the same feelings as you, where you're just sad that you don't have that motivational factor, or that you don't have that something that you look forward to for so long is gone, and there's no way for you to bring it back, you know.
Right.
And it's just a really tough thing to swallow, but I think you did a great job of that. So on that note, did you return back to the woods there in North Dakota and hunt after Kobe was gone?
Yeah, I was back at it the next day and actually had one of my best encounters of the season the following day.
That's cool.
But yeah, I had one. So the day that he was shot, it was on a Friday, and then I had Saturday to hunt, and then my good encounter was Sunday morning. So then I hunted Sunday morning, took Sunday afternoon off from hunting to go see him and meet family and stuff, and then headed to go back home. So, but yeah, and then I was kept at it, because that's one of the things that we will touch on more, I'm sure. But when you are targeting that certain buck and you kind of have tunnel vision on him, and then he gets shot, it's kind of like, what now? And I had no plans. I had cameras everywhere and everything that I hadn't checked, and so then I just went back after, just, you know, from previous knowledge of scouting to rut spots and stuff, and was just continued hunting.
Was there any I know it's might be hard to see, but was there any level of relief when Kobe got shot?
You know, I want to say yeah, but not really. I think if it would have been one more year, then maybe. But, because you kind of put that inherent pressure on yourself. I mean, especially with someone in my position where I'm sharing everything through articles and videos and social media, and that, with how great that is, but then you get to the point where people are kind of like, all right, let's, you know, get them shot, or let's go, you know. I mean,
well, people just live in this world of hunting personalities that kill their target bucks. You know, they have 4 target bucks that kill all 4 of them in different states, and it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors, you know.
And it happens in 10 minutes, you know. It's like,
it's just not the real world, you know. Like, I've gone 2 years and not shot a buck here in Texas, you know, and I've had target bucks each year, and it just doesn't happen for you sometimes, you know. And that's the life of a real hunter. Well, not to say those guys aren't real hunters. I don't want to say that. No. That's the life of your everyday hunter. Let's say that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I mean, that's also a thing too when it comes to someone who can't hunt as much, or you don't have a bunch of private property. Is targeting a certain deer the best route to go? And that's kind of a decision you have to make, and one that I'm kind of changing my stance on now, because it's more about what you want to get out of a season and what you kind of consider as success, you know?
Right.
Sure. Yeah, sure enough, man. Did the woods feel empty any after that experience?
It's the fact that not only that I was after one deer, I mean, he ended up grossing 183, I think.
Wow.
Taped out at, and he was just a beautiful, and not even just that he was 183, it's just that he was a beautiful, pretty much, I don't know the measurements, but, and I don't like net scores anyway, but I'm sure his net would have been like, I'm sure his net would have been like 182 and a half. I mean, like, he was perfectly symmetrical, just a beautiful deer.
Mm-hmm.
And especially and that's the one thing I do love about trail cameras is when you have, not like I had a couple of 100 pictures of them. I mean, when you have so many, and every time you check a card, you're just like, all right, I wonder what Kobe was doing or when he was here. And just knowing, like, I felt like I knew him, you know, like I knew his every move. Yet, and this is where, when it comes to the everyday hunter and what you have to like go through to actually connect on these deer, is these mature bucks are so much smarter than sometimes we give them credit for. I mean, where I was hunting them was kind of down where the wind's kind of like it's in a little kind of valley, and that's what I think my biggest problem was, is that I would kind of go, well, my wind's all right, but I can get away with it, which I guarantee I probably wasn't getting away with anything.
Yeah,
looking back on it. So,
Kyle, you've expressed to me in the past that you've had similar feelings of emptiness in the woods.
Yeah, man. It's and this was a deer that I shot. I mean, but it's a similar feeling, I guess. You know, like you hunt all season for this deer, and then all of a sudden it's like, and I mean, honestly, it's been like every year that I've been successful, and it just feels like all that hard work, it finally, like, you're so glad it came to a successful ending, but at the same time, you're like, it's over, you know, like I'm through until about 8 or 10 months from now. So, it's a weird feeling for sure to kind of have that emptiness.
It must feel a little better when it's here.
It definitely does. Right? I mean, I'm sure it does, you know, for sure.
No, but yeah, I get the same point.
Yeah. And it's been a weird feeling for sure. I'm glad a couple of things you mentioned there. I'm glad you mentioned about the respect of the animal, because that's one of the things that my dad has talked about a lot. When you hunt, I mean, most of us have a buddy or somebody we've hunted with out there that do something that just is like, you're like, I can't believe that you do that way, or you don't take that precaution. And you know, everybody's going to have one or two of those things, but some people are just kind of blatantly disregard, all of the detailed tactics that it may take to fool a wise buck like that, you know, and it's because they just kind of regard them as just dumb old deer, you know, or whatever. And I'm going to go out and sit in a box blind and see if it happens. And I don't know. I think that's very important to be successful on a mature deer. And I'm not saying that doing it that way, sitting in a box blind and with blue jeans and without taking a shower the last couple of days, I mean, that's fine if that's what you want to do, you know. Hunting doesn't have to be something that's ultra stressful and detailed and everything. Right. But, if you do want to target something like what you're talking about with Kobe or Shaq or something like that, I mean, it takes a lot of work to make that happen most of the time. You know, sometimes you get lucky, but I'm glad you mentioned that, you know. Another question I had was, did you feel like, you know, you were talking about the wind when you were hunting there. Do you think that scent dispersal or the wind was an issue or a factor when you were checking the camera? Do you think that kind of pushed them out of the area a little bit, maybe when you were around?
Not in the summer, because I think my biggest problem was in the summer, I was very OCD about it and did everything perfect. But once it came to hunting them, I was a little more I took a few more risks, and then I would check the camera when I was in there. And so the one camera that I checked, which I mentioned was up in the field, that was easy because I could just drive right up to it, and the farmer was always around that area, so I knew that did nothing. But every time I had to walk through the field, and as soon as I touched the timber and went into this river bottom, anytime I walked in there, I think, whether I walked in and he came through that night, overnight, or what have you, I think pretty much looking back on it, I would have hunted probably a lot less, but I was so determined to shoot him that I kind of let my aggression get the best of me. And being aggressive can be good, but sometimes if you're targeting one deer, it can hurt you.
Sure. Yeah. So basically hindsight's 2020, and there's a lot of things probably that you would.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I could do it again, I would do it a lot different, but I mean, and that's the thing about hunting one deer is even though I didn't shoot him, I mean, I consider it successful in the fact that there are ways that I'll be hunting this year and the next year and the following year, thinking back of, what would I have done if I was hunting Kobe, if Kobe was in this situation, or, I learned a lot from hunting that deer.
Sure. The trend, it seems like amongst many hunters who either have a season that doesn't work out the way they want it to, or they end up, shooting a deer they really wish they wouldn't have, or anything, is that it's almost like the phrase is, I'm just going to hunt this season. I'm just going to forget everything, and I'm just going to hunt for fun. Are you going to take that approach this season, or are you going to get back in there and try to find your next Kobe?
Kind of right in the middle. I mean, I'm not going to try to find my next Kobe, but I think I'm going to have still a certain type of buck that I want to shoot because I like hunting mature bucks, and when a younger deer walks through, it doesn't trip my trigger, I mean,
sure.
But there also I could rattle off a few different deer that I'm confident will be on camera, and when they are, I'm going to try to figure out how to harvest them. But at the same time, I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket.
Sure.
I'm going to try to figure out if I'll just use scores just because it's the most basic. If I got a 180 showing up every so often, and I got a 130 incher nice 4-year-old or even 3.5-year-old, that's just a nice deer that's on camera all the time, or I think I have a better chance of them, I'm gonna go hunt that deer.
Man, that's a tough call, and it's it's gonna take some guts to make that. Because man, if I had a 180 show up,
well, and it's much easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Because when you do get, especially if you get like the worst part is like if you get one daylight picture of a giant and you're like, oh, he's a daylight mover.
Just that one little glimmer of hope, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry, dude. We'll keep you honest this season about saying that. Whenever you do get that giant on film, or say, actually, you need to go hunt that 130. So a couple of your current prospects for this next season.
Yeah, at least I would think there's a couple. Well, in 2015, so I've got one buddy out there, his name's Tyler, that I do all my hunting with. And in 2015, he shot this buck. It was the first deer that we shot out in North Dakota, and he was 182, just a giant. And he had this one brow tine. His left brow tine was just huge. And we got this buck on camera last year that on the same property that looks like a freaking descendant of him. And he was real big last year, and he was one of the deer that I bet I would have had a shot at harvesting, because when I had this camera up on this property, I went back and checked it after Kobe had been harvested, and this buck was in daylight freaking September 1st, September 3rd, September 5th. I mean, I'm like, oh, well, if I would have checked this camera, I might have had a chance at this deer. So he's one. And then I got another one that I've named Geezer, that we got pictures of him on this same property the first year out there. And he was probably like I think he was at least a 3 or 4-year-old in 2015. And he's still around, and he's just a big old brute. He's been around every year till about October. So he kind of disappears, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks after he sheds velvet. So I think if he's around, I'd like to have a run-in with him too.
Sure.
Yeah, that's cool. I like those big body old deer, that I don't know why, but just after my experience, last year's first year went to the Midwest and like really seeing what a true big body deer looks like. It's just awesome. What a big body mature buck is like up there.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
Yeah. So are you going to treat your locations different? Like, okay, so you changed jobs like pretty much mid-season last year and ended up moving to Minnesota. Are you treating like one area you're going to be a little bit more target buck oriented and the other area is kind of a fun hunt, or do you kind of have the same mantra everywhere?
No, it definitely changes from expectations will definitely change based on where I'm hunting. So even though it seems a little counterintuitive, but even though I'm North Dakota now, which is kind of weird for me, is an out-of-state hunt. I'm going to be still a little more selective there than I am here in Minnesota, because in Minnesota it's just way tougher. I mean, if I get 130-inch buck on camera, I'll be freaking stoked,
Yeah.
And so if I still am not going to shoot like any old, I hate to say it this way, but any old buck. But if a buck that comes by that makes gets me hyped and I want to take him, whether he's 120 or 150, I mean, he's gonna get an arrow. But North Dakota, because North Dakota, I mean, it's only where I'm at now is only a 4-hour drive, so I know I can realistically get back there a number of times, Sure. But then I also will be this year hunting down in Nebraska, and I have permission on a few different properties, but
Nice.
I only might get down there once or twice, and so it's kind of be like the first buck that I like is going to get an arrow.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
That chance.
Yeah. So are you going to be? Is that like a rut trip, or are you going to be trying to do like a early season thing down there?
Well, I have these like perfect scenarios drawn up in my head that happen, but in a perfect world, I would go to North Dakota, shoot a buck opening day, and then the next day Nebraska opens, and then I go just jet down to Nebraska, shoot another one, and then come back to Minnesota and be all happy. But
perfect.
It'll probably be Nebraska will probably be like a late October trip, depending. Yeah. Because I don't want to be hunting down there during rifle season. So. Yeah. But North Dakota, I don't care about, because North Dakota rifle season, they've got. There'll be like 12 dudes within 20 miles of me hunting with a rifle, but down in Nebraska, there might be 20 in a mile radius. So
that's funny. So, when you're going to all these different places and hunting, how do you determine what is a target? You just kind of said like in Minnesota, it's like, a decent buck. Nebraska, it's whatever, makes you happy. But are you looking at like an experience, like the way the deer comes in, or is it more like a maturity thing, or like what trips your trigger?
It's a little bit of a combination. It's going to be, I mean, I know 2.5-year-old or younger, I know I won't shoot. But when you get into, a 3.5-year-old 8-pointer might just come waltzing right in, and I might be like, oh, but not really. I don't know. But it could be the experience. But in Nebraska, if a 3.5-year-old nice 8-pointer comes in and he comes in just dogging a doe or something, and it's just like a really cool experience. I know I'm only there for a few days. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing for me, and what I actually get asked this quite a bit, is like, well, what's your number? Or what's, and it's not always a number or a deer, but it's, at the end of the day, it's when you release that arrow, if you connect to make a perfect shot, when you recover that deer, are you going to be ecstatic? It's pretty much what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And if the answer is like, I don't know, well, then don't shoot the deer. That's kind of how I feel. And if you are, then let the arrow fly, and so.
Yeah. I dealt with that last year, actually. I we got this hunt on film, but we had a buck do kind of what you just said. He's probably a 3-year-old 8-point, really nice public land deer for here. Came in, pretty much to the base of the stand. And I drew on him, and I just wasn't sure. And I let down, and I drew again. And like that's I was like, why did I just do that? You know, like this deer in that moment didn't really like, you know, fit my fancy. So why would I, you know, make an attempt to shoot him again? You know what I mean? Like it was kind of a weird deal, you know, like it was one of those things where, to be quite honest, like the pressure of getting a kill on film, you know, and doing what we do was kind of, I almost let that kind of take over what really made me happy, you know, but I'm glad I didn't. However, and it was kind of goes back to the target buck thing, because one of the reasons I didn't shoot that deer is because they were much bigger deer, or just let's just say more target bucks in that area, and he really wasn't one of them, you know. Right. And really, if I didn't have that target buck, or those target bucks are like a hit list, I might have would have shot that deer. So it kind of put me in the woods more, but at the same time, I ended up eating a tag at the end of the season, you know. So it's kind of one of those give and take deals. So yeah, you know, kind of on that note, like, what's one of the most valuable lessons you've learned from having a target buck?
I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, I'd say one of the most valuable lessons from having a target buck is you have to be okay with not shooting anything, right? Yeah. Because I think so often people will have a target buck, they'll get shot, and then they'll cuss themselves out for not shooting X, Y, and Z before. And it's like, well, you were targeting buck, and if you want to have this buck be the one, you got to be okay with not filling a tag. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and that can be really hard for some people to eat, because even with what you were saying, some people just feel like they'd rather just shoot a buck to shoot a buck, you know, which it's a lot more than that. Yeah, sure. You know, if you're going to be truly targeting one certain deer, because when you think about it, when you target one deer and only one deer, and then let's say you don't own 300 acres and have 10 food plots planted and have his freaking diary. I mean, it's hard. Yeah, it is. I mean, I've targeted bucks most every year that I've hunted, and I've shot one, and that was 5 years ago. So I think that's definitely something that people have to be thinking about when making those types of decisions. And part of it too is so much of hunting media, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I contribute heavily, is that you target a deer and you go after them. And so some people kind of like, well, I got to find a big buck to hunt, you know? And you might have a whole bunch of different bucks on camera, and that's cool too. And just shoot, you know, I mean, you don't always have to pick one deer, but when you do, you got to be cool with not getting them. Yeah.
Do you feel like that are you always going to have that target buck going into a season, or do you feel like there will be a season somewhere down the road where you just like, I'm just going to go get in a stand and enjoy the evening, and if something comes out, I'm going to have meat in the freezer?
Yeah, I think there's always that aspect to it. I think like every year I'll have, it might not be a target buck, it might be target bucks, and it might be, it doesn't have to be this deer, but I'd like it to be one of these deer type of thing. But there are nights too where I think even if you are targeting a certain deer, where if you got good conditions to go somewhere else, even going somewhere to just shoot a doe and sit in a stand that, you know, you might not be hunting your target buck, but just to enjoy spending time in the tree or with someone else, because there's so many other levels to deer hunting that sometimes can get lost in the pursuit of one deer, you know?
Right, yeah. I agree, 100%.
So I think even if you have a target buck, or even if I've got a target buck, it doesn't necessarily mean there won't be hunts or days that I go hunting that are just like, I'm just going to go hunting tonight and see what happens, you know?
When you talk about like having one specific deer, or having like what most people would call a hit list, right? On a hit list like that, do you prioritize, or do you just say, okay, if it's one of these 3 or 4 bucks, he gives me an opportunity, I'm going to take it no matter what?
Yeah, it's more of a theoretical prioritize.
Yeah, I'd like to see this one.
like this buck to come in first. If, they're coming in a line, but I'll shoot any of them type of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of usually how it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
It's kind of like a prayer request list, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. Do you think that like having target bucks through, your hunting life has kept you hold your focus more? Like maybe you've shot your bow more than what you would have if you were just a fun hunter or a meat hunter, or like you've got your gear more dialed in because you have this specific target buck to focus on?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that definitely, because when you're it's like any type of goal you have in life. It's like if you were setting out to really try to accomplish one goal, usually you're more dialed in to get it done. So I'd say, yeah. I mean, especially last year with Kobe, I was so dialed it was almost to the negative. I mean,
yeah, I guess it can get to that point, right, where you get to the point where instead of focusing, you're stressing. Do you feel like you felt that way last season? You stressed about Kobe more than you focused on him?
I wouldn't say I was stressed. It was more so like the way I think about it is, in hindsight, I think, what would I have legitimately done had Kobe come out and presented a shot? Yeah. Like, I question whether I would have been able to pull it off, because some people are just stone cold killers. I mean, I think that kind of comes with experience, and I'm definitely not that yet. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if, I mean, the biggest deer I'd seen in my life while hunting was Kobe the year before. And now he had, dwarfed that. And so him stepping out, I mean, where he was on trail camera in daylight right in front of my stand, the way he would have come out probably is it would have been, I looked and boom, he's right there. And I don't know how I would react. I'd like to think that I would have reacted well,
Yeah. Yeah,
to look down and there's Kobe at 15 yards hitting the scrape with his head up in the branches. Mm-hmm. I mean, I might have just passed out right then and there.
Got a good safety harness for that reason.
Exactly.
So this is an interesting concept. Like, so you're hunting public land, and we do pretty much all the time too. Say you've got Kobe.
Yep.
Walking in. And then in a parallel universe, you have a buck you've never seen and you don't have any trail cam pictures of or anything that's of equal stature and class of whitetail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which one is going to cause you to pass out sooner? You know what I mean? Like, which one, what's the tougher shot to make?
Definitely the one that you got history with, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, because even think about it, I mean, yeah, I think definitely the one, because you've prophesized or you've thought about that moment a million times in your head, Mm-hmm. I know when I was sitting in the tree stand, practically every moment I was, trying to play out scenarios if Kobe did this or that, or, here's how I'm going to pull back. Here's when I'm going to pull back. If he's chasing a doe, I'm going to do this. I had everything like that. And, so then if you actually see him, it's like, holy, there,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you ran it through your mind so many times. That's good, though. It's good that you do that, because, you don't want to be one of those guys who just has a deer kind of trot through his lane and freaks out because he didn't know what he's going to do and ends up just bleating so loud that he runs it off. That'd be a really bad feeling on a target buck like that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that in hunting Kobe that you became too dependent on one of your tools or tactics?
I mean, I guess I'd say no, but I'd say that I probably put too much stock into trail cameras.
Yeah.
In that,
I think we all do that, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a natural. I mean, trail cameras are freaking awesome. I mean, I just got some delivered to me today. I mean, I love trail cameras. You know what I mean? But sometimes you kind of forget that there's a lot going on out there outside of the field of view of the trail camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
KC
think
has had to remind me of that several times.
I don't know if it actually has any any validity or not, though. But I at least try to say that because it helps me calm down too. You know,
And it can go both ways. I mean,
yes,
I was out checking a trail camera yesterday here in the big woods of Minnesota, and I was in a spot that I've never hunted in my life, and I'm like, you know, it's a half an hour hike through this creek to get to the camera, and I was just like hyping myself up, and was just couldn't wait to check that card, which is like any card. And I come back and I throw it in and scroll through the pictures, and the biggest buck I had was probably going to end up being like an 80-inch 8-pointer. And I was like, oh. And so immediately you want to go to, well, write that spot off. But just because it didn't have a buck on trail camera that I liked in a 3-week period from middle of June to early July doesn't really mean crap, you know?
Sure.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, man, this past season, we had a trail camera replacement that we thought was going to be money. We were actually on our way back from Colorado and stopped and checked the camera that's far from the house. I think we're just swinging through. Either way, we saw like 2 bucks that were probably shooter bucks in velvet, you know, and we're like, man, let's hang a trail camera here. Nothing happened pretty much all preseason or early season. And then, you know, boom, November 20-something hits, and it's just like lining up like crazy, you know. So it's so the deer have so many different patterns in parts of the season. They do different things. Like, just because you don't have one or a decent buck showing up on a camera doesn't mean the spot's bad. It just means that he's just living somewhere else right now, you know. Like you could have one of those Minnesota booners show up on that camera come, you know, November 5th or something like that. You know, you just never know.
If there's any alive up here.
Well, the thing to think about though is, like Casey always tells me, and this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, is that like if you turn that camera around 180 degrees on the tree, it could change your whole thought about that spot. You know, I mean, it just sometimes you just didn't make the right assumption. It's not on the right trail. It's, you know, or whatever it might be, and so it's always good to kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I agree. And especially in places where you can't. I mean, it's one thing if you can bait or throw down a bunch of mineral, and if you don't get anything for 2 months, you're like, all right, well, there's probably not a big buck here in the summer. You know, but doesn't mean one can't move in the fall, but you get the point. But if you can't do that and you're putting up, like you said, over a trail or over a scrape, or it's based on just how deer are moving through there. And like you said, they could be on the backside of that same tree hitting a different scrape or something. I mean,
definitely. So this is a little bit off subject. So we'll get back onto it as soon as Casey starts asking questions again, maybe. But this is something I'm interested in because, like we mentioned, we hunt quite a bit of public land. How discreet are you having to be while hunting public land? Are you scared to give press to certain areas or certain deer, or just yourself? I mean, you driving a different vehicle to the stand? Like, what do you do?
I think that's super dependent on where you're at. So like in North Dakota, for instance, hardly anyone out there deer hunts. I mean, which just blows my mind. But out there, I don't lock anything up. I'm pretty liberal with where I park. I really don't take any precautions. Now, things can, like in Minnesota here, things will change. If I do get a big buck that I'm after, I know if I do post that, or if someone sees me go into a spot, I mean, there's just a lot more pressure. And so I'll go as far as doing things like, if I'm hunting on one side of the road, I'll park down the road on the other side, just where if someone sees my truck and they know it's me, or they think I'm hunting, they think I'm on that side of the road. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I might be less inclined to post drone photos. Actually, I'm going to go off on a here. When I talk about North Dakota knowing hunting, well, one of the few people that do bow hunt out there, a buck, I don't know if you guys had followed me in 2016 when I hit that buck in the shoulder. You guys have any idea what I'm talking about?
I don't know if I do. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I hit this buck in the shoulder. Actually, the first year I was hunting Kobe in the same property, and hit this buck in the shoulder, tracked him, never found him, hoped he'd live. Well, this past season, randomly, some kid and shot that buck, and he's like, hey, just to let you know, I hunt the same public land as you, and I shot the buck that you hit I saw on your YouTube channel last year. Just want to let you know I got him. Anyway, yeah, he had seen one of the drone pictures that I had posted, and he knew where I was hunting, and he had already put in a camera up there. He's like, yeah, I didn't know if it was any good, but then I figured out that you were hunting there, so I thought I must hunt there, and I ended up shooting this buck.
Oh, man.
But I never saw that deer on trail camera or anything again after I hit him in the shoulder, and he shot him really close to where I was hunting. So, but
yeah,
it just goes so you got to kind of watch what you're posting or how you're relaying where you hunt.
Sure.
Oh, we deal with that quite a bit, man. And this is one of the things that, like, I guess it's just a part of it, and it drives me crazy that it's this way. And I was going to ask you about it because I guess it could be pretty easy to fall into, you know, but like, you ever struggle with like that greed or envy, you know, of hunting public land or whatever? And, you know, not that you have it, but just like the temptation is kind of always there, you know, and you kind of have to do things to make sure that you don't fall into that trap.
So when it comes to greed and envy, I think that, you know, pretty much what it comes down to is when, you know, we're all after kind of the same thing when it comes to public land hunting. And I think that it's all about like respect. And, you know, it's when you're out there, and if I were to see another hunter, I'll go up and talk to him and see where he's at, because I don't want to hunt right next to him. But if, you know, if someone comes in, sees your tree stand and hangs a stand 30 yards away, you know, then it's like, come on.
Yeah.
So it's all about, I think, just being respectful. And, but I mean, it can be easy, especially going back to our previous discussion, when you're targeting one buck and someone else gets them, you kind of feel like you're entitled, even though you're really not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So do you ever, this is kind of, I'm interested in hearing what you say about this, but are you ever like running across a road so as not to be seen, or exiting your truck very quickly for the same reason?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like I'm crazy when I do that sometimes.
No, or if I'll like pull up to a spot, like if I'm getting ready to park, and like, because a lot of spots that I hunt, there's not like I hear you guys talking about like the parking lot of public land. Like, I don't know if you guys have that. Like, everywhere I've hunted, there's no parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's more of a side of the road. And so if I'm driving and all of a sudden I see a car coming behind me, I'll just keep driving and then turn around at the next road.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yep.
Then come back.
Yeah.
Tyler has this system of like profiling public land hunters. He'll like look at a car from a long way away and be like, no, we're fine, dude. They're not a public land hunter. But then he'll see like this single cab Nissan or something rolling up with a sticker on. He's like, oh, that's a public land hunter, dude. We got to ditch it.
Yeah. The minivan is usually just a soccer mom, you know, or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, unless, dude, you remember last year that whole pile of people got out of that one minivan?
I do.
And they piled out of this minivan with shotguns. I guess they were pig hunting or something, but it was like, man, I did not expect that. It was kind of crazy. But
I've done even like shed hunting. I'll roll up to a spot and there'll be a car parked. I'm like, is this a snowshoer or is this a shed hunter? Someone in there trying to get my bone, or like?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done that too all the time. Snowshoers are a big problem.
Yeah.
Big thing down in Texas. Snowshoer.
Yeah, lots of it.
I don't even know if you can buy those here. So, since we're talking about the strange and weird, are there any weird downsides or like strange things that you've noticed from having target for bucks?
Other than people just texting me asking for GPS coordinates, not much.
Okay, are there serious people that do that, or is it just like people messing with you?
I've had some, I wouldn't say buddies, but people that that I know, that all of a sudden when they know of a big buck that I'm hunting, like, oh, you know, if you're looking for someone else to come out and hunt with you, I'm down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
like, oh, you are you now?
Yeah.
Like,
why would I look for that?
That's funny how that works.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Yeah, I can definitely see that. You know, it's once you get a good deer on camera, and man, people just start coming out of the woodwork like, oh, I didn't know you were a public land hunter, but now that this is, you know, over here on camera, you're like, I'm going to leave my little 20 acres with a corn feeder and come see what you got going on, you know?
Seriously.
That stuff happens for sure. So is it possible to manage expectations when you have a target buck, because I feel like, and let me make sure like everybody understands what I mean by manage expectations. It's not a British literature book. That's Great Expectations. But like, I try to, let me not say I go. I try to go to Colorado every year and go elk hunting with the expectation of going up there and really enjoying myself, no matter what.
Right.
And if I kill something, it's just a bonus. In reality, by the time, September 14th gets here and it's time to leave, I'm like, okay, I'm killing the first thing I see, and it's, 80 yards, and I'm shooting, and like I just get all hyped up about it, And I feel like when you have a target buck in mind, like the target or the goal of that season is to kill that deer. Right. So the expectation is to kill the buck. So how do you manage expectations when your expectation is to kill it?
It's a great question, because in hindsight, it's so easy to say, we'll just use Kobe. I learned this, I learned that. And even though I didn't kill him, it was a successful season. Sure. But in the moment, it's so much harder to do that and to manage those expectations, because like you said, especially with like that deer, I was living and breathing every day. Like, my girlfriend was sick of Kobe,
day two, probably.
Yeah. So, it was like, it would be, this night was date night, but I'm like, well, we do have the rare northeastern wind. Yeah. So, so you get so focused on accomplishing that one target. So I think what it comes down to is being able to, whether it be in the moment or right after or whatever, being able to take a step back and figuring out what you can learn, even if you're not, successful, completing that task or getting that buck. And it might be after 2 weeks of not seeing a deer, or after it doesn't go, you have an encounter and it doesn't go through or anything, being able to just like come home, take a step back and be like, why? That's one of the big things I've learned is with target deers, the word why can be really important. Mm-hmm. Not just taking anything for face value. Why was he on camera at this time and this date? Why did I not succeed? Or maybe why did I succeed? And that's another thing that I think it's really overlooked, is when you do have a target buck and you do get them, it's really easy to just be super pumped and then you don't really analyze it. Mm-hmm. So why is a big thing for me. I'm always asking why this, why that, to try to be more successful, and then to try to help manage, those expectations, I guess. Mm.
Yeah.
I ask that a lot too. Casey makes fun of me sometimes.
Tyler's catchphrase is, "I've got a question for you." That's what he says. Yeah. But no, man, I think you're exactly right, and it's not even target bucks. Like, for instance, last year we went to the Midwest and Tyler killed a great buck that we still need to ask that question about. That we'd never seen that deer before that morning, but we still need to evaluate, like, okay, why did we end up shooting that deer at 9:30 in the morning, as opposed to like an evening hunt or earlier in the morning hunt, and why did he move like this on this certain wind like this? It's that analytical mind that I have to work at trying to have on situations like this. And I feel like it's like you said earlier, like with like being a stone cold killer, like experience is going to get you that, right? And the same thing with like being able to analyze these situations with mature bucks. Like, the more and more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And sooner or later, we're all hoping at least to get to that point where, not that we got them figured out, but we know them a lot better than we do now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think it's even taking those whys or trying to figure that out even further. So, like, we'll just use your example, the buck that Tyler, you shot, it's 9:30 in the morning, and you go, why was he moving at 9:30 in the morning? And then you go, okay, because he was, we'll say he's looking for a doe. Mm-hmm. Why was he looking for a doe there? What was he looking for? And then taking it even another step further and that you might uncover something that could really lead you to benefit you in, following years or following hunts.
Man, that's a great point that I don't know. Maybe I ask why so much about one specific thing, and I'm not 100% sure of it, that sometimes I don't take that extra step to think, like you said, well, here's a simple answer to that, and then what's the next part of why was he doing that, and then why was he doing that further, So
Right.
I like that, man. I like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
So back to Kobe for a second here. I know you love this. Would you rather have never heard of Kobe's demise and think that he was still out there this year, or would you rather have had that conclusion?
Conclusion all the way, not even a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be driving because the way I am and my personality is I'd spend this whole year going, you know what, I'm not shooting another deer if it's not Kobe.
Yeah.
And there would be no Kobe.
Yeah.
So
you're saying he's that caliber of buck that if you had another one of him on trail camera this year, do you think you would come to the point where you're like, it's kind of that buck or nothing?
Well, not even just that, just the caliber, but when you build the history, and I had the encounter from 5 feet away, and and then plus if he was still alive this year, you never know, it could be a 200-inch deer. I mean, those don't come around every day unless you're Adam Hayes. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, it's just when you build that with what I feel is a connection with the deer and like that. I mean, I'm probably, if it got to be September and I hadn't had him on camera, I'd be like, all right, what's going on? Because I've had him the past 2 summers,
Yeah. So what aspect of targeting a buck do you feel like takes like the biggest toll on you?
I think it's the inherent risk, or the inherent pressure that you put on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because like with Kobe, there was no pressure coming from anyone to actually like shoot him now,
Mm-hmm.
All the pressure was coming from within, like feeling that I had to get it done. And that can sometimes take the fun out of it, which in the moment, like it's almost kind of sucks to say, but sometimes, you just get so hell bent on getting that deer. And then if you have a hunt where you don't see them, especially those days where you're like, all right, this is the day it's going to happen. And then you don't see them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start questioning yourself, your confidence. And then it can turn negative, but you got to try to not let it go that route.
Yeah. Does the public, being in the public eye a little bit, does that affect or influence any of that pressure, or is it just mostly within your own self?
Definitely within, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, because even if I didn't do what I did and just hunted and there was no such thing as whitetail DNA, just the way like my personality is and the way I am with hunting, I would feel, the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten real detailed with the Kobe stuff. And I appreciate you being willing to go into detail on that. I know it's like we stuck 17 Band-Aids on you and ripped them all off slowly. But
I'm going to stop you real quick. Yes, you're totally right. And when the North American Whitetail article comes out, I'm going to do a live video talking about Kobe and some stuff. And I swear that will be the last words I talk about him. So you got till then. You got a few more weeks, and then I'm gonna be like, Kobe who? Kobe Bryant?
Yeah.
No, LeBron's in LA.
LeBron, that's it.
yeah, that's right. That's funny, man. All right, well, where are you at until August? So, on a broader scale,
Sure.
As hunters, I want you to profile a little bit. Who should have target bucks?
Who should have target bucks?
Mm-hmm. Like as a type, like what type of hunters, and like say they hunt different types of properties or whatever. Like who should have target bucks?
Sure. I think first of all, you have to be somewhat experienced and just a hardcore guy who has guy or gal who has a lot of time. Because I think if you're a new hunter, you shouldn't be targeting one deer because it's like being a brand new hunter and saying I'm only going to shoot a 150. Like, you should shoot whatever makes you happy. So I think there should be a natural progression. And then once you get to that point, I think to target specific deer, you need to have a lot of, like, if you're just a weekend warrior, you could target specific deer for 10 years and maybe not see them,
Sure.
So it takes a lot of time, and deer hunting needs to be really important to you. If deer hunting's not like a top 3 to 5 priority in your life, I think targeting one deer is probably not the way to go.
Yeah.
So it's probably the first things that come to mind when it comes to targeting one deer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Man, I mean, it's hard to even give a counterpoint to what you say, just because that's pretty close to it. I would say that just from my recent experience, the past 3 or 4 years of really hunting a lot of public, it's really tough to have one deer on public land. And to be honest, like last summer, me and Tyler were doing so good with like trail cam pictures and scouting. Like, him and I both, like, we joked about it a lot. But I know, like, it's just like with sarcasm, like, there's always a little bit of reality to it, Like, him and I both joked that, like, it was like one deer for each of us or nothing, And, like, I truly feel that unless you're in a really, really specific scenario, that having one single party buck on public land, especially heavily pressured public land, like, it's going to be tough for you. I'm not saying you can't get it done. And I mean, you came really, really close to getting it done with Kobe, but it's like you were saying earlier, like you passed a really good deer because of that, and it's going to take its toll. So I guess that's the only thing I have to add is if you're a public land hunter, like, really, really think about it and put a lot of thought into the idea of if you're going to have a single target buck, that it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the all or nothing kind of mentality is tough just all around, I think. I think the approach that it seems like you're taking this year with, having your list or having your targets, but not being afraid to, if the situation is right. And KC talks about this a lot because we rattled in a deer that was, probably, I don't know, he might have been a 3-year-old. He's just kind of a Texas 7-point, nothing too special, but like he came charging in, and that situation was like, just hype, man. And so
I was juiced.
Yeah.
I rattled that thing into like 12 yards, and we didn't see him until it was like at 15, so it was like, man, the hair on my neck stood up, and I was ready to shoot that deer right then. And we actually had a talk with a guy a couple weeks back, Gary Greenwald, about experience hunting. And that's kind of how I've decided to start defining myself as an experience hunter. Not really a trophy hunter, not a meat hunter, but I'm just looking for a certain experience. And you had touched on this at the beginning of the interview. Like, it's just, you got to get out there in the woods and find a thing that just makes you tick, and it might be something different every day. But in that moment, like, I was like ready and willing to shoot a deer that I would have definitely passed with my tree stand. But I rattled him in. We were on the ground. It was so unexpected and exciting. Like, I would have had. Well, I'm not going to say that. I feel that I would have not had any remorse shooting that buck if he hadn't seen us, at 12 yards, because it's pretty tough to get a deer that close. So
that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, it was pretty fun, man. But I don't know. That's about all the input I can. I mean, you said it about right. Like. That's you just really need to evaluate your situation if you're going to have target bucks.
So, we've talked a lot about Kobe and target bucks and everything. This summer, I mean, what are you doing right this minute to try to prepare to find your next target buck?
Well, I just got back. I think we touched on it earlier. Just got back from North Dakota. So I went there this weekend and pretty much hung a bunch of cameras. And got some mineral sites set up and stuff like that. So for North Dakota, I'll be back there in about a month. and then I'll check those cameras, do some glassing over a weekend, and then that'll be the last stuff or the last deer preparation that I do before opener. So that'll give me about 2 weeks. And then right now where I'm at in Minnesota, it's kind of doing a lot of scouting, trying to figure out where I'm going to set stands, because like the cameras that I have up in Minnesota right now are more of like inventory and I don't really have anything to inventory yet, but hopefully they're going to be for inventory for bucks that are around, because with season not opening till mid-September, I don't really know that I'm going to be using them for to hunt based off that actual information for early season. And then right now I'm trying to find a few spots that hold a lot of does, because as soon as Minnesota season opens, I want to get out and whack a few does, because that's one thing I really haven't done the last few years is where I hunt in Minnesota. I actually hunt in an area where I can shoot 5 does.
Wow.
But in North Dakota, I could shoot 1 deer. So I wasn't shooting any does or anything, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. And so I think one thing that people kind of forget about is, even with it helps you hunting mature bucks, is get out there and just shoot some deer, So that's one thing that I kind of want to turn my attention to this year is I'd like to shoot a couple does the first couple weeks of season and kind of just get that feeling of a harvest and send an arrow through a deer and a blood trail and all that good stuff, which can kind of get your mind right. Because I feel like inherently I don't know about you guys, but it seems like for me, always the first deer of the year that I try to shoot, I feel like I messed something up. It's like you've been so long since you've been in a stand, whether you draw too quickly or the wrong time, or it's just like, oh, shoot. All right, so this is what it is again. It's like if you haven't been on a basketball court for 6 months, or whatever. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So you played a lot of basketball growing up, I guess?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it with all your, your names and your references, man.
I was a big basketball guy.
Yeah.
That's I was sad to hear that, like, you named that one deer Grungy or whatever.
Geezer.
Geezer, yeah. It wasn't a basketball name.
I've used, it's like every deer. So there's one buck in Minnesota a couple of years ago, and the real big one's public land, like tens of thousands of acres. And he was in June, like early June, he was like a 170 or 160. Like he was primed to be like a Minnesota monarch, right? And one of my good friends had him on camera that I hunt with, and we're like, what should we name him? I was like, let's name him LeBron. So we named him LeBron, and we never saw him again. So there's that. And then I got Shaq.
He probably went to Miami or something.
Exactly. And then we have Shaq got killed. Kobe the next year got killed by the same family. And then the year that Shaq died, one of my other target bucks I had named D Wade, and he had been harvested. So I'm like,
golly,
maybe all the basketball names just lead to other people shooting them.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, maybe you need to go to the NCAA or coaches or something like. Maybe, dude. Krzyzewski, that should be your next buck nest.
It might be.
That would be.
Just call him K for short.
Yeah. Good luck. Right. Good luck spelling that on social media correctly every time.
Yeah. So you're a big trail camera guy, and we are too. And we talked a little bit about like some of the pitfalls of trail cameras and how they can get you down. But I mean, they're just one of the most valuable tools we use, and to be quite honest, like they make hunting more fun. Like there's nothing like trail camera photos, and I know you know that too. Have you changed up some of your trail camera strategies for this season? Changed anything, like with how you're hanging them or what you're hanging them over or whatever for summer scouting?
Not really. The biggest thing is now that I'm actually in Minnesota during the summer where I can't use like mineral or anything. I'm trying to use mock scrapes during the summer to try to locate bucks. So we'll see how that goes.
So mock scrapes in the summer before they're hardhorn?
Yep.
Cool.
I've done it in the past where it's worked, and just I mean, with what I've seen is just deer are just social animals. They're hitting. I mean, I've got pictures of bucks hitting scrapes when they've already shed. I mean, and so we'll see how it works.
Do you get like pictures of them actually pawing, or is it mostly the licking branch stuff?
Licking branch. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a place that I hunted actually in high school that was a private land place that had a year-round licking branch. It's a cool thing, man. It was like there wasn't even a scrape there, but there was just one tree that, deer hit every month, every probably day of the year, and I don't see that often, but that place had it, and I'm always looking for it, but I don't know if that's a regional thing or why, or maybe I'm just not being observant enough, but so are all of yours mock, or are you actually finding pre-existing ones?
Well, right now mine are mock, but in a perfect world they're pre-existing, because if you can get out there and find pre-existing scrapes and that are being used during the summer, like the licking branch, it's harder to locate right now because you're literally looking for like a branch that's been kind of mangled, So good luck. But in the spring, you find a bunch of scrapes. What I'll do is I'll throw cameras up and then I'll leave them up. And once the rut's kind of done, if there's still bucks and deer hitting them, I might be like, all right, well, this might be, a licking branch. I don't know the science behind it. I'm not that technical, but I feel like there are some scrapes that deer are hitting during the rutting time of the year. And there are some scrapes with the licking branch that they use, like you were saying, all year round. The scrape that Kobe was hitting in front of my tree stand, I had a camera on there all year round, and deer were hitting that all times of the year on the licking branch. And then from September, October, November, they're pawing at the ground, and the rest of the year is just licking branch. So it's an interesting game because it can be difficult. You can't walk to the woods and see a scrape and be like, oh, yep, that's a year-round licking branch right there.
Yeah. So when you're making those mock scrapes, are you actually opening up the scrape underneath the licking branch?
I am, and I don't know if it has any validity, but I feel like there's some type of visual aspect, possibly. Mm-hmm. So I still, at this time of year, will open up the ground and then hang something up, with a licking branch. Right now I'm using like wild carrot deer attractant. Has it's really cool because it's just like a rip and pull, and so you can just put it right on the branch, and they've got all different kinds of scents, and so I'll just hang it up there, opposed to hanging dousing the licking branch in something else. Cool.
So you had a video that you put out pretty recently, I think, talking about kind of your summer shooting tips, or kind of the things that you're practicing at least. And you talked about shooting in gray light. Can you expand upon that for those who haven't seen that video?
Yeah, I think when it comes to shooting your bow in the summer, it's really easy just to head out at any time in the evening. You shoot your bow and head back and call it good. And I think what sometimes people don't realize is that I don't know that it really does all that good for you, because I think you should be putting yourself in situations that you'll be in the fall when you're actually deer hunting. And so whether that be shooting from an elevated position, or you're on your knees, or like in some type of contorted position, or like what you were saying with shooting in low light conditions, because I don't know about you, but when are you most apt to probably have a chance of shooting a deer? And it's that first half an hour, last half an hour. So when, it's just kind of basic deer knowledge is deer like to move later in the evening, earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I like to practice shooting my bow in that last half an hour of daylight, when it gets real dark, because you'll notice you might be a great shot out to 60 yards and midday, but when you get down to that last 2 to 10 minutes of daylight, all of a sudden it looks a lot different through your peep sight. You're shooting way low or way right or whatever it may be, and if you can know that, so then that way if you got a big buck that comes in the last couple minutes of daylight, you can feel confident shooting instead of going, crap, I haven't shot my bow before in the last 2 minutes of daylight. So I think it's all about just putting yourself in positions in the summer, practicing shooting your bow that you'll be in come fall.
Right. You mentioned earlier how, in a certain state you may be hunting September 1 or September 15 or whatever. And then in some states, a lot of states, I think it's October 1st opener. How are you setting your cameras based off of the potential opportunity to hunt a deer that's still on its summer pattern versus in a state where you may be hunting a deer in pre-rut for the first time, or, in a little more of a high testosterone part of the year?
Right. Well, when I'm running cameras in a spot like North Dakota where season opens this year, August 31st, I'm getting those set up, on food sources, close as I can to bedding, whether it be, a crop field or if I'm putting out mineral or whatever, trying to get a sense of how they're going to be moving to the point where the information I get based on that, I will be hunting them on. So if I'm getting a deer moving in daylight in the corner of a bean field, hitting some mineral or just in the bean field or whatever, I'm going to use that information to actually hunt them come opening day, right? Mm-hmm. But if I'm running cameras in a place like Nebraska, season opens early, but I won't be there till October. Or if you have a spot that doesn't open till October 31st, I'm running cameras in the summertime in, high deer density places, easy to get to, can drive right up, whether you're running mineral or whatnot, just trying to get an idea of what's in the area, because once those deer shed their velvet, and if they're moving off from their summer to their fall ranges, they might be around, they might not. There's so much that's, up in the air that's dependent on, not even from state to state, but from property to property and buck to buck,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it isn't open till October, or if you're not going to go to a state till later in the year, the summer trail camera is just trying to give me an idea of what's in the area. Mm-hmm. What is my age structure? Are there a lot of does? That's one thing people forget about, because from what I've seen, at least my experience, if you got, a bunch of doe family groups in there in the summer, I haven't really seen where they shift ranges in the fall. So if you got a whole bunch of does in the summer, I think those does are going to end up equaling bucks in the fall. So those are things to think about. So
you're making, in a situation where you might not be hunting till October, you're kind of finding deer density heavy areas, and then making assumptions based off of your trail cameras about where those bucks are coming from and where they'll come from in the fall, I guess, right?
Right. So then at that point, it's a combination of, hopefully some spring scouting, terrain features, and then previous year's trail camera data.
Right.
So then I'll move trail cameras in the fall. And so like if I'm going to travel out of state to an area and run cameras, they have the cameras up, running through November, I'm not going to use that data for that year. But for the following year, it's like, all right, well, if I got X buck in this area in the summer, or X bucks, here's my inventory. Well, based on what these bucks were doing last year in November, I'm going to, think that they're going to be moving through this area or moving between these doe bedding areas come November,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, we're talking about like the summer scouting stuff and like what you're doing trail camera wise. And I'm sure you're, adjusting your tree stand setups and, probably doing some gear tweaks and stuff like that. So, what are your goals that you want to accomplish before season starts?
So, pretty much, my goals are going to differ again from state to state, but we'll just do the North Dakota, Minnesota. North Dakota, my goals are, when I'm there opening weekend, I want to be knowing, you give me a wind direction, I want to know what stand to go to have the best chance to shoot a mature buck. Mm-hmm. Have all my stands already set. And then I also want to have backup spots that maybe I don't have stands, but I always have a hanging hunt system with me. So I want to not only have stands hung and ready to go, but I want to have spots, whether it's marked on a map, pre-scouted, you name it, where it's like, all right, say I get the crappy southwest wind that I don't want, where can I go and still have a chance,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to Minnesota, my goals are to establish an inventory of bucks, and then have probably a couple tree stands all ready to go for opening week to try to shoot a doe, and then to have spots to either move trail cameras to or to do some observation hunts to see if I can get eyes on a buck to make a move. And then there's also all the stuff of all the little things, having all your, if you got stands up that you leave up from year to year, I need to make sure straps are checked, because safety is always number one. You don't want to climb into a stand that's had tree stand or that's had straps chewed or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then just all the maintenance gear, or running maintenance of your gear, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So how close are you getting all your goals accomplished?
Probably at about 15%.
And we're looking at a September 1st opener, so you've got
August 31st.
August 31st. Man, that's early.
It's cool. Come fast. I mean, it seems like it's that way every year, where it's just like, shoot, I'm going to be hunting next weekend,
Yeah. But what's cool about though, like, that's coming up fast, but that means that from now until the opener, like, your life is packed with whitetail. Because you got a lot of stuff to accomplish, and that's awesome. That's fun.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot of. it's kind of like what everyone that's like us kind of lives for, right? This time of year. You think about the 4th has kind of been always for me, the kind of the date where it's like, we're thinking about whitetails 365 days a year, right? Every single day of the year, we're thinking about deer at some point. But once the 4th hits, you have great time on the 4th. It's like the next day, it's like, all right, let's go. It's time to lock and load, because crap needs to get done.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to mention Kobe one more time, since it's not August yet.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
Okay. So through all the roller coaster ups and downs that you experienced with Kobe last year, what do you feel was the biggest success of your season last year?
That's a really good question. I actually probably haven't really been asked very often. The biggest success of last season. Shoot, I'd say the biggest success from last season would be probably a couple things, and that would be one, it's going to sound weird, but not to be too confident, because like I had said, to me, it wasn't about if I shot Kobe, it was when. Mm-hmm. Like, I was dead set on, I thought I had him figured out. Mm-hmm. And it usually doesn't work out that way. So when you think you have a deer figured out, look at every aspect. Why hasn't, it comes back to the why thing. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of taught me to be more, I'd say, a more seasoned hunter, in the fact that I need to just be more careful with everything I do, even if I'm being aggressive, if that makes any sense at all. Mm-hmm. It's always, I think I'm just learning this right now. So thanks, guys. As it comes through this, when you sit in a tree stand, you need to be there because you think it's going to happen that night, whether it be whatever you're hunting, not just to be in a tree stand. I think there were times that I was hunting Kobe thinking I was going to get him, but if you would have asked me why I was in that stand, I probably didn't have the greatest answer for you.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it was because, he lived in the area and I got on my camera. I think one of the biggest things I learned is that you need to have good reason to be where you're at, when you're there. And yeah, I guess that'd be it.
Cool.
Kind of a convoluted answer, but
no, it's good, man. I'm glad to teach you something about yourself. I'm glad that I can take credit for that.
Well, how often does that happen to you guys, where it's like, if you're in a tree stand and if someone were to say, why are you sitting in this stand? You'd maybe be like,
yeah, dude, last year several times.
Nice.
Yeah. Especially, it's a late season thing, kind of, it feels like, too, sometimes, like you get to that point where you're just like, you run out of ideas, and you're just like, I'm just going to go sit in the woods and hope,
Right.
Yeah. Which works sometimes, but, you sit there with a lot more confidence when you know you have a reason to be there.
Right. You think about it. or in a tree stand and you leave the stand on, like really disappointed that you didn't see a certain deer because you thought you were, and you had every reason to believe it. I mean, that's really the position you want to be in, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, hey, dude, thanks for your time, man. I know we've been on the phone forever, and I appreciate that. I also, I guess, would say thanks for the opportunity last year to do that little write-up on the buck that I shot last year. That was probably like the first time somebody in the hunting media asked me about my take on deer hunting, so that was cool, man. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, that was a sweet deer too. So you guys going to be going back there again this year?
We'll be going back for sure. We've got several, due to our cartologist, KC Smith over there. We've got plenty of map spots picked out. So,
the Casey's turn to put down a big one out there.
It is, man.
I hope, man. We both drew this year, so
really?
I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, I've never hunted out of state for whitetail, at least. So it'll be a new experience for me. I'm pretty stoked, really.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'll be releasing the film of that buck here in the next couple months, I believe. So, hey, I got a question for you real quick for the listener that wants to find out, more great whitetail info from you or whatever you got going on. What's the best way to connect with you besides sending, GPS coordinates and that kind of thing?
Right. If you ask me for GPS coordinates, I probably won't respond. But yeah, you can just head to whitetaildna.com, or you can, follow me on, Instagram's a great place. And just at whitetail _DNA, or then YouTube channels, just whitetail DNA. Trying to do a lot more video this year. Actually, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a different style. Instead of releasing video content kind of the year past, it'll be kind of up to date, semi-live. It'll be, releasing video blogs of the hunts from that previous week. So it'll be kind of a more up to date, what's going on this time of year type of thing. So those are probably the best ways to find me or to find my content.
Cool, man. We'll make sure and link to that. And again, thanks so much, man. It's always a well-informed talk with you, man, and we'll keep in touch. I'm rooting for you this year, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, good talking to you, man.
Man, always a good time talking with Alex, dude.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and I feel like we just can parallel on so much stuff, just similar situations in much different areas of the country.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's crazy the parallels that happen within deer hunting, even though you're hunting almost a completely different, facet of the species, I guess,
Yeah, his critters could eat our critters. I guarantee you
That's
that.
about right, man. That's about right. Well, cool, man. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Real quick, if you don't mind giving us a review on iTunes if you're enjoying what you're hearing, we really appreciate that. That helps us out tremendously. Also, we have released or will release today, depending on when you're listening, another gear review. So KC did a review over his Vortex binoculars, and it's pretty cool and pretty funny. It starts out really funny because sometimes we're not on top of our game. Sometimes. So anyway, make sure you go check that out. It's on our YouTube channel, and really do appreciate you guys, man, your support and just paying attention to what we're doing. Hope that you guys are having a great week and that you're starting to get some trail camera pictures or get some trail cameras out, whatever it may be. We're excited about ours. I know that'll be coming up soon. So make sure you get out as much as you can. Finish up this summer strong so that you can have a great year. And I know, KC, you're doing that in a way of like just working so that hopefully instead of no shave November, it's no work November, right?
Maybe. I bet y'all still have to hit a lick every once in a while, but I'm going to make sure that I have the freedom for when the cold front moves through. I'm not going to be working, and I'm going to be doing what I love to do, and that's chasing big bucks.
There you go, dude.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. So God bless you guys. Remember, this is your element.
Living it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew, Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.